Are you gentlemen ready to start? It's a couple minutes early, but I think if everybody's ready to go, let's get at it. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. It would be nice to say this is our last meeting of the year, but you know that's not true. As we have a special council meeting to deal with an in-camera item this Thursday at 3 o'clock, I believe. Okay, so I do appreciate everyone coming in early again. I think that we can get through this rather thick agenda if I quit talking by this evening. I would like to remind everyone again that our meetings are webcast and they are televised, and of course put these in silent mode. That would be appreciated. There are no volunteers tonight to assist with the broadcast, so certainly we are broadcast, but no volunteers tonight. We're starting at 1:30 today. As you know, we have a lot of items to get through, which is evident in the agenda in front of you. I will again ask everyone, try to be concise as possible today, and that includes myself. Keep your points directly related to the issue before us. That will help. I know the procedural bylaw says that council members should be allowed to speak to a maximum of 2 times on any issue and 5 minutes per time, but I know we've always had a little lenience there. I'll try to keep us going on that. So we'll make every effort to try to be concise and get on with the evening's agenda. The agenda is before you for approval. There's one change that the clerk has asked us to do and consider, and that is to remove 2 bylaws from the agenda, as they presuppose council will not support staff's recommendation for deferral and were listed in error. So they are the 13A on the bottom of the 1-2-3 page, and 13B. Both of these numbered ones are, of course, public hearing applications. We'll be hearing on Scott's. Mr. Clerk, do you have anything to add to removing those 2 this evening?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, just they were listed on the agenda in error, and it's never, we always want to make sure that we aren't giving the impression that council might not support staff's position on any matter. I do believe we circulated both motions, and it seems like the motion to approve the agenda as presented it might be more successful than the changes, so it's up to council to decide whether or not they desire to change the agenda or not. It's just important to note that there was an error in listing them.
So your suggestion is they're on the agenda in error, the 2 bylaws, and we'll remove them this evening. They'll be dealt with later? Yes. Could I have a mover to do that, please? Councillor Wells has moved. Seconder is Councillor Oliver. That the agenda be approved and the 2 following amendments, that the following bylaws listed in error be removed from the agenda. I'm not going to read them, but I'm going to say they are bylaw 13OP217, that's 13A, and 13B is bylaw 58Z 2017. And again, they relate to the Scott's applications. Discussion? Those in favor? Thank you. So we will go with the agenda with the exception of those 2 bylaws, which you can take from your list. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest to declare at this time? I hear none. Item 4 is our closed session. It's been moved by Wells, seconded by Columbus. That council moved into closed session at 1:34 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to Section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act 2001 SO 2001 C25 as the subject matter pertains to a potential acquisition or disposition of property by the municipality or local board, or to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including employees of the local municipality or board. Discussion on this? Those in favor? We will now move to closed session. I expect 15 to 20 minute, and I'm expecting at least one motion to come back out from that, okay? We'll see. Thank you. convene an open session. Those in favor? We are back from our closed session, and we are now in open session. Thank you, Andy. There are two resolutions for this council to consider as a result of the closed session. The first one, it's been moved by Councillor Columbus, seconded by Councillor Height, that report DCS 17-88, being a report to make appointments to the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board, be received as information, and that Norfolk County Council approves the appointments of Wanda Heimbecker, Janice Ketchen, Michelle Clofer, and Matthew Suckle to the Tourism and Economic Development Advisory Board effective January the 1st, 2018 to December the 31st, 2019. That's a two-year appointment. Discussion on these appointments. Those in favor of the motion, that is carried. Thank you. The next motion, its mover is Councillor Black. The seconder is Councillor Wells. That report DCS 17-96, Habitat for Humanity offer to purchase, be received as information. The council accept the Habitat for Humanity offer to purchase the property known as 88 Orchard Ave in Simcoe for the price of $15,000. That's $15,000. That council directs staff to immediately undertake the necessary zoning amendment on the subject property as to permit the construction of a new single-family dwelling. And further, that council approves a grant equal to 50% of the applicable development charge fee at the time of building permit issuance, with funding through the mayor and council's grants to others. And further, that the net proceeds from the sale of the property be credited to the current year operating budget, that's 2018, as a disposal of a tangible capital asset and transferred to the Property Management Services Reserve. Discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Mayor, you said current year 2018. Should it not be 2017?
Should that be 2017, Chris, or 2018?
Mr. Mayor, you're quick on your feet. It would be 2018 because that's when the deal would close. So it would be credited to next year's, although the report does not say that.
I was wondering it myself, and I guess I guessed right. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor of this motion, that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baird. Appreciate it. We do have a presentation at 5 o'clock. Just prior to our public meeting, so we will leave item 1 until then. There are no deputations that I'm aware of this evening, and we'll move on then, please, to page 7 in your thick agenda. This is the adoption and correction of our council meeting minutes. The special budget meeting that we had on November the 23rd, 2017 are printed on page 7. Any comments or questions on those? Just go through these and stop me if you wish to comment. And also, council meeting minutes of November the 28th, 2017 are on pages 9 through 20. Anybody find anything in there that's concern? I did not. Hearing no discussion, I will adopt them as printed. Closed session minutes. What have you got there for me, Andy?
They were previously circulated.
Circulated? Okay. All right, thank you. We'll go on to our communications. We have two items, A and B. It's been moved by Councillor Columbus and seconded by Councillor Brunton that communication items A and B received as information. No discussion. No discussion, no. Nobody's singling it out. Those in favor? Yes.
Yeah, on B, just can I ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff? What is, we do have some sort of a sidewalk policy on plowing some of the roads throughout the county. Some are done by the county and some are not. In this instance, which way would this one be?
Through the mayor to council, our snow clearing for sidewalks is determined through our minimum maintenance standards, and that has criteria for whether or not the county would be doing the snow removal or be the responsibility of the private or the property owner. In this particular case, it does not meet our criteria for municipal snow removal and would fall to the property owner to be responsible for clearing the sidewalk, as it is in every other place in the municipality.
And that's fine, thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Height, and then Oliver.
Mine's on item A. Is that acceptable?
Anything else on B, since we're on that, and then I'll get to you, if you don't mind, instead of flipping. Okay, Oliver and Columbus. Thank you, Councillor Height. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only question to Ms. Robinson relates to the public notice. And Mr. Fredericks in his letter indicates he only got 2 or 3 days notice before commencement of construction. And I guess my question to Lee is, Lee, do we have a standard protocol that we use to inform property owners of sidewalk projects that they may or may not be aware of just through the media or the whatever?
Through the mayor to council, this particular piece of sidewalk was identified through the budget process, so it was identified quite earlier as well as publicized as a result of the budget process. When it comes to the actual construction, we typically notify 7 to 10 days in advance of the work taking place. Unfortunately, in this case, we were advised from our contractor that we would have very favorable numbers if they were able to mobilize very quickly, and that's why they received less notice in this particular case. But unfortunately, we are at the mercy of our contractors when they come in to do this work, and lots of times we don't get the 7 to 10 days notice.
I wonder, Mr. Mayor, in light of that, if we could, if there would be merit in changing our protocol so that instead even of 7 to 10 days, which quite honestly seems to me relatively short notice, especially if a project was going to create some kind of, not necessarily undue hardship, but create some expense for a property owner. In this case, it's quite a length of sidewalk, obviously. So my request or my question to Ms. Robinson is, would there be anything stopping us from directing that our notification period be extended to not less than 2 weeks, for example?
Through the mayor to council, I'm struggling a little bit with that. The notice that we provide is the notice of construction, not the notice of the project.
I understand.
We could have the potential, if we are very restricted in terms of the notification that we can provide, with this type of work, like with sidewalk work and all of that sort of stuff, our contracts are written so that the contractors have some flexibility. It provides us with better pricing. If we start restricting them that way, we are going to see our prices significantly increase as a result of dictating the time that they're able to come in to do that.
But in this particular case, obviously, they didn't even meet the timeline that we had given them for whatever reason.
Through the mayor to council, we don't give them a timeline. That's why we receive the favorable prices that we do. Typically, a contractor will let us know that they'll be on site 7 to 10 to 12 to 14, 2 weeks in advance. We usually find out about it. But if another project isn't ready, if something gets canceled, et cetera, the contractors will give us very short notice that they're going to be available and they're going to be on site. And our contract currently allows for that. And we do receive, I have been informed by many contractors that we do receive quite favorable pricing to have that flexibility in there. With respect to the sidewalks, one of the provisions in it is that they always have access to the properties where at all possible. So you'll recall when we did the Queensway this summer, we maintained access to all of the businesses throughout the entire construction project. It does cause a lot of staging for the contractor, but we do feel that it's important to maintain that. And there was no access to the property lost during the construction.
No, I realize that. Well, Mr. Mayor, we don't have to deal with it this afternoon, but I do think if we have a protocol, and I don't know whether Lee said it was a written protocol or just an informal protocol, that we try and give adjacent property owners 7 to 10 days notice. I would like to see that formalized such that our contractors are aware of our desire, obligation to inform property owners 7 to 10 days, or 2 weeks would be my preference, in advance of starting construction, so that this kind of scenario would be less likely to happen. So I don't know how we should deal with it, whether you will permit me to ask that some sort of report come back at some point about this, or whether council supports what I'm doing. What I'm suggesting, if they don't, obviously it's a non-issue, but I think it's somewhat unfair in a case like this that a property owner is only given 2 or 3 days notice before the construction equipment moves in.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I'm going to go to Councillor Columbus, and I think we'll deal with the motion, which deals with both items, and then I'll come back to you after the motion if it's passed or whatever, and then on this item,
Thank you, Mr.
B,
Mayor.
Councillor Columbus, and then Wells on this item as well?
The
Okay.
long-term issue here is snow clearing of this sidewalk, lengthy sidewalk. But Lee, I just wondered, can you share with us, how are you going to respond to this letter writer? Do you go back through the letter and respond in writing?
Through the mayor to council, certainly if, depending on the direction we receive from council, we will respond to the property owner in writing. Should council uphold the current minimum maintenance standards, we will respond that in accordance with the minimum maintenance standards, there is criteria for where the municipality does the snow removal, and this particular property does not meet that criteria.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just a question further to what Councillor Oliver had suggested. Do we notify businesses that we are going to install a new sidewalk? I'm not talking about when. I'm saying once we decide at the budget time that we are going to put a sidewalk in, do we notify the owners then that a sidewalk will be coming?
Robinson?
Through the mayor to council, typically we do not go around notifying of all of our construction projects that are taking place in the municipality. The budget process is a public process with lots of notification. They are all the new sidewalk projects are identified as independent projects, and so as such are identified through the budget process. We do not notify for every reconstruction, every property owner that's taking place in that. Everywhere we're doing water relining, we don't notify for every construction project, every piece of property that we're going to be doing construction that year.
Thank you. Anything else, excuse me, on item B? Okay. Councillor Height, item A.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I guess my interest is in the other item, the transient accommodation tax. It appears here that on December 1st that municipalities could now implement a tax. And I'm wondering, I'm looking at some of the qualifications here, and it says whether we have a destination marketing program or not. I wonder if I could direct that question to Mr. Baird, whether we would qualify for this program.
Through the mayor, certainly Norfolk County could qualify. We're one of a number of municipalities that don't currently charge that call it a hotel tax, if you will.
Yeah.
I use Niagara Falls as an example. They do collect an additional tax on each room evening rate, and that goes to fund these not-for-profit organizations. So we would be eligible to, if we were so to establish one, could be one in our own or in our partnership to help provide some additional funding.
And do we have an eligible not-for-profit tourism organization in Norfolk that this could work with very quickly?
Through the mayor, perhaps Mr. Johnson can add to this, but we are part of the RTO1, the Southwest Ontario Tourism Organization, and I believe there's opportunities to work with them in the interim until one is such established. But James, anything further? Because it's certainly worthy of more investigation if that is a funding stream that this council may be interested in pursuing.
Yeah, absolutely. And is this just the hotel tax, or is it also on sale items? I thought Niagara had it on sale items as well, but it's been a while, no?
Mr. Mayor, I believe it is strictly on the accommodation piece, correct?
Okay, so will you be bringing a report forward on how we move forward with this, or do you need direction from council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I met with Clark Hoskin on this, and we discussed this tax, and And to be honest, at first I thought it was a tax imposed through our tax system internally, but after some clarification, it's very similar to a hotel tax. They're just introducing new legislation that there is a 50% requirement to give to a nonprofit organization. We had a conference call with approximately 30 other municipalities where they spoke with the ministry on some of the intricacies of the legislation. And between Clark and myself, we agreed to do a wait-and-see approach on what some of the other municipalities are doing and to take a look at it in the new year.
So wait and see for what? For them to do all the work? And see how that goes? So do we need direction here from council to have you guys do that, or you will be bringing a report back to us anyway?
Mr. Cribbs?
We could provide an undertaking to provide a report to this council in May, between April and June, for its consideration
Sure.
on the issue,
Yeah, sounds good.
if that's reasonable.
Sounds like something that we could use. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly on this same topic, I remember during my tenure when I sat on the TDAB, this came up, and it would be my suggestion at an early stage we refer this back to TDAB, because at that time they weren't supportive of doing it, and the county didn't do it. I think we could have done something back then, or at least through the regional tourism organization. But I agree with my colleague, it's a good thing to have further discussion, but I really would be anxious to know how the TDAB feels about it, and I think you are the rep on TDAB still at this point, so thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Columbus, please.
Mr. Mayor, I know for sure that there's a hotel tax, but I believe it's also on meals, where they can collect this tax on meals. Because one time in Niagara, I was surprised at the bill I got. I paid the tip, I paid the HST, and then this extra tourist tax. But when Mr. Baird's researching this, I hope that he looks into that. Thanks.
Anything else?
30%.
The motion is to receive communications item A and B as information. Any further discussion? Those in favor? Carried. Let's move on then to reports of committee. I'm sorry. Oh, Councillor Oliver, my apologies. I was going to come back to you. Go ahead.
Yep,
I'm sorry.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put forward a recommendation. I don't know how it can be handled logistically through the clerk, but I would like to suggest that somehow we direct staff to establish a minimum 2-week notification process for adjacent property owners on sidewalk projects. I know Lee's answer was we don't notify people about all our projects. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about sidewalks specifically, where adjacent property owners do end up having, in many cases, obligations. And we know that council has undone sidewalk projects in the past for reasons that we deemed appropriate. So I think we owe it to the public to provide a more formalized notification process. So however it can be handled, Mr. Mayor, that would be my request.
A written motion is in order.
Should I
and
follow
if
notice
you-
of motion protocol?
No, if you would like to make that move that, and I get a seconder, we'll deal with it now.
Okay. Well, that would be my motion. I don't know whether the clerk has captured the wording or not.
Well, he's going to read it to us.
Thank you.
I do have the mover. Do I have a seconder? You want to hear the motion? Do you want to second it? Okay, so we're going to put Oliver and Hyde on it, and then I'll let you read it, Mr. Clerk, and we'll move forward.
That staff be directed to bring forward a policy requiring notification 2 weeks in advance of any sidewalk installation to adjacent property owners.
Councillor Black to the motion? Well, I'll entertain you first. I know
Okay.
Mr. Cribbs has indicated he
Yes.
wishes to
Well,
speak as
well,
well.
thank you, and I can see the dilemma here. On the one side, you know, you're giving people notice, but on the other side, it's probably going to cost the taxpayers more money. You know, so that's the good and the bad. And I'm pretty sure I know where Lee is coming from. She's trying to facilitate these projects, to move them forward as quickly efficiently and effectively as possible in order to save the taxpayers' money. So I've had minimal feedback, negative feedback on this, so I'm thinking I won't support the motion.
Lee, and then I'll go to the county manager, and then to anyone else.
Through the mayor to council, I think that I've made my concerns with respect to trying to do this well-known. I would suggest that if council is very desirous of ensuring that we sort of change the whole thing up so that upon the passing of the capital budget, which identifies the sidewalk projects, that staff be directed to send out a letter at the beginning, and that way we're not handcuffing our contract and potentially having extreme additional costs with respect to that. It's something that would allow staff to send out a notice as soon as the project is approved by council and still allows us the flexibility in the construction to ensure the most cost savings that we can possibly undertake in this manner. I'm very concerned about the additional costs that handcuffing our contractor are going to subject us to. We've gotten some incredibly favorable prices as a result of being flexible and allowing this to take place. Our capital budget process, which is where these types of projects are identified, is a public process. It's very well documented. There was a lot of discussion about this particular sidewalk at the council meetings. So there is plenty of notice that these works are taking place. The other thing I can suggest is, as council's aware, we implemented a considerable number of signs for our capital projects. So you'll see that after the capital budget is approved, that we start posting large signs that identify the capital budgets or the capital budget projects for the following year, or at least we start putting them up in the spring so that it's not a surprise to anybody. We could certainly do that with the larger sidewalk projects as well.
Lee, just a question I have. It seems to me of capital budget, there is a lump sum for sidewalk installation for the county, correct? It's not identified by location.
Through the mayor to council, it's a bit of both, actually. Larger sidewalk projects like Donnelly Drive are actually identified as a independent project. The Queensway was also identified, not the extent that we reported back because
Yes.
we had the savings and so we took advantage of that. But those larger brand new sidewalks are typically reported as a separate item. The projects in the budget that are sort of in the lump sum may be, I don't know, 100 meters in between two existing pieces of sidewalk that don't exist, that we would do that as opposed to a larger section. So it's really little bits that get done as part of the lump sum. The larger ones like this one, like the Queensway, we identify them separately in the capital budget process so that council's aware of a larger sidewalk undertaking.
Mr. CAO, and then I'll go back to council. Any comments?
I don't know if Ms. Robinson and I have great minds or not, but we do think alike. I was going to suggest that we consider sending out notice during the budget process. It would give everyone months of notice ahead of time, because we send it out when the snow's on the ground, but would still allow us the corporate flexibility to get the best price, and I think it's the best of both worlds.
Oliver and then Brunton.
Much,
Councilor
Mr.
Oliver?
Mayor, I really appreciate Lee's suggestion. That completely accomplishes what I was of the opinion we need to do. And it really only is brand new sidewalks that this would ever need to apply to. Replacements are a non-issue because they're there, they're old, they're decrepit. Everybody's happy to have it replaced with a new one. So if the clerk could rework my motion such that it just addresses notification regarding new sidewalk projects at the time of capital budget approval or following capital, I'm a happy camper. Thank you for that suggestion. If my seconder will agree to it.
You okay? Thank you. Councilor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I'm open. I don't care which way we approach this, but I can tell you that from experience that 90% of the time when you advertise you're going to put a sidewalk in, it's the people that do not want it that are going to start complaining. Plain and simple. And if it's done ahead of time, be prepared to have people coming in here, making deputations, well, I don't need that sidewalk. And this particular one we're dealing with today, or just dealt with, we dealt with that. I dealt with that gentleman way ahead of the time before the construction went ahead. He knew the sidewalk was going in. Now he's just telling us that he doesn't want to shovel it. And so, you know, it's a case where people, if they're notified, it's our property. We usually put the sidewalk on. So, again, if you want to do it for big projects, but To me, one simple ad in the paper, it says here, we're going to build sidewalks here, here, and here, a couple of months ahead of time, and let them, that's your notification. I don't want to start seeing our staff running around to every little house telling them what's going on.
Any further discussion on the motion? I'll read it one last time. Oliver has moved, Hyde has seconded. The staff be directed to bring forward a policy requiring notification of 2 weeks in advance of any new sidewalk installation to adjacent property owners. Councillor Oliver?
Mr. Mayor, the 2-week thing is not what I had in mind. I think Ms. Robinson's suggestion of notification following capital budget approval of new sidewalk projects. That's all I'm asking for at this point.
You wish to have it that way?
Instead of 2 weeks.
I will read it again, that staff be directed to bring forward a policy requiring notification after capital budget approval of any new sidewalk installation to adjacent property owners. Last call for discussion. Those in favor of the motion? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 2, 3, 4, 5. That motion is defeated. Thank you. Let's go to page 25, reports of committees. I have a motion here, I'll need a seconder, that the open and closed minutes of council and committee meeting of December the 5th, 2017 be approved as presented. That's 9A, council and committee minutes of December 5th and the closed session minutes which were distributed. Councillor Wells, you'll second that? Thank you, sir. Councillor Brunton, on these minutes, please.
I wanted to speak on the telecommunications. Are we dealing with all of them at once? Is
No.
that- Okay, I'm
No, we're going
sorry.
to deal with these separately. That's okay.
Thank you.
We'll get to you in a second. Anything on item 9A, and part one's included? If not, those in favor? That's carried. Are you ready now, Councillor Brunton? I'm going to come to you in a second here. Moved by Councillor Hyden, seconded by Councillor Brunton, that the minutes of the Telecommunication Advisory Committee of October the 16th, 2017 be received as information. They are printed starting on page 37. Councillor Brunton, discussion.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Luke. I don't have a so-called problem with the minutes, but in the minutes, if you go to page 39, there's a few items in there that the committee are looking for some form of direction, the way I see it. And if you go down, and I'll touch on, well, a couple of things. One, down there says, Brent Wallace explained the large municipality backed out of SWIFT. Does anybody know the background to that, or could explain to me what happened there?
Mr. CO?
I'm happy to announce that at this point in time, in fact, all of southwestern Ontario, as far as I'm aware, is in SWIFT. Middlesex County reversed itself. It reconsidered its own, so it joined. Huron County was not expected to join, and I don't know if it was a reconsideration or if it just that it passed, but at any rate, Huron joined, and Perth County was also expected to be a no, and it joined in as well. So I am unaware at this point in time of anyone actually successfully backing out, if that's how you want to phrase a negative. So I can't confirm that, or my information is that everyone's in. I can't confirm that anyone is out.
Well, I'm just going by what the minutes said. So the CAO approached it, the CAO took that, and I thought maybe there were some details, but if not,
True, but back in October, I would have told you that Middlesex had voted to be out, and they've now voted to be in, so I suspect that's what we're referring to.
any reasons why they backed out, though? Was
They're
it just simply money, or?
Their chief administrative officer has a dim view of SWIFT, and the council was persuaded of that, and then heard from their constituents and reversed themselves.
Okay. The next one from me, Mayor
Yes.
Luke, is at the bottom. It says, committee would like to receive feedback from council, and I don't know where we provide that or how we provide that. I have attended some of the meetings, as Councillor Height has also, and, you know, I think there's a lot of merit to that committee so far from when I have attended. I do see one thing, that there's a lack of, and I go back up to the top, where it says, discussion commenced respecting Waterford, Port Dover, and Victoria, and whether they have fiber installed already. Well, fiber going to Port Dover, I believe there's Bell, and I think Norfolk Power at one time had fiber going to Port Dover. So, you know, it's the old duplication, I guess, and I'm starting to wonder where that's going with maybe, and I know there's been a lot of arguments with the CRTC about other uses of somebody else's fiber, and that seems to be a big secret with a lot of these companies. So, anyways, I would hope that as council, we give this committee some direction, or what we think of the committee so far, and I'm very supportive of it, what they've done so far. So that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Columbus?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wonder, this fiber is installed on our municipal property in the right-of-ways. Why can we not get a map showing where all the dark fiber is placed? There could be some duplication. Like we should actually have the right to see a map where the dark fiber is.
Want to respond?
Yes. Sorry, can you,
Sorry.
there's a multi-pronged answer here. Importantly, for the SWIFT project, those companies that are participating have provided the location of their infrastructure to SWIFT. They've done that under the guise of non-disclosure agreement so that SWIFT can't and will not tell us, but they have disclosed it to the pertinent quasi-government actor that is going about trying to increase fiber penetration through rural southwestern Ontario. So they've made the important disclosure that will allow this big venture to go forward. Secondly, it is, from a liability perspective, we very much want to avoid becoming the keepers of the data of anything that's located within our road allowances. We've got the one-call system, and I know at the moment we're talking about fiber, but if you switch the topic to natural gas, or if you switch it to electricity, the only thing we really sort of want to know is water, because we do that. But otherwise, generally speaking, we're not designed to be the keepers of that information. Those companies, that's their competitive advantage. And in this, as opposed to several others, where they have fiber is sort of fundamental to how they make money. So they don't want to share that with us for what they view as valid reasons, and frankly, I'd be inclined to agree. But we have no good basis to demand it. Even if we did have it, then, and others asked for us, we worry that we create a liability position if we started talking about where it was. It has been disclosed to the important actor, which is to say SWIFT and not Norfolk County, because it's not Norfolk County that's leading the way. We've paid money to a third party who's sort of taking care of that now. We're part of the SWIFT initiative, and they've got the information.
Mr. Wells?
Very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, on this item number 5, that committee strongly support Brent Wallace budget allocation of $440,000. Have we kind of suggested that that's what we would be contributing as our share of this project?
We dealt with that in budget time, and I believe we approved it, did we not, James?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, and there was a separate report during the year where we identified, we were actually back some payments, and we caught up this year, and I believe 2018 is the last year of our payments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brunton, then Height, please.
Just one last comment, and I heard this the other day, that on Victoria Road, for example, there's fiber going down there, and individual residents is being hooked up for free at this time. Now, I'm pretty sure that's the information I was given, but we've always heard this last mile is the most expensive. Like we've heard that along the way, but I guess and I know the CRTC have provided information to these various fiber companies, if I could use that word, that they are to share information on where this fiber is. I've been told that by some of these, some people in Bell and different companies like Bell, and I don't want to mention some names, but it's when they see a market out there, they rush in and they try to scoop the market up before somebody else. That's as simple as, I mean, that's good marketing, I guess, by a company. I mean, it's no different than when we tried to put the gas down in Turkey Point. If there was a good market there, they would have went in and done it themselves. Obviously, some of these companies see value in putting in fiber, even if somebody else is there. That's the way I see it. But somehow it would be nice if we could get a handle on it. That's how I feel. But, and I know the committee's tried. Maybe Councillor Heights heard more, but thank you.
Councillor Height?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. To bring council up to speed on some of the stuff, the fiber line is down to Port Rowan. I believe they're running it over to St. Williams right now. There's been a great uptake in customers, and they're very, very pleased that we've moved forward with this initiative. Very, very happy for an area that was severely underserviced. People are very excited about this. The price point seems pretty good. Everybody's fairly happy with that, and they're happy to see it moving along. I think what you're going to see from this point forward is where the wire or the fiber has extended out towards the communication towers, that those people in the end last mile, or that could only connect through Wi-Fi, will see an increased bandwidth coming back into the internet, because there will be less people like jamming up and clogging the traffic from that area, so that will help speed things up. So I think pretty much everybody's going to be a lot happier with how this is rolled out. And from there, other towers will come, and they will add to last mile customers as well. You can see item C on page 38, open Wi-Fi in public buildings and parks. I think this is one of the things that we're going to have to look at in the coming year as well, an offering for the public to connect with Wi-Fi throughout our facilities and things. We might have to look at that again. And just the parks, it is the customer service standard. It's cities and towns and communities all over the place. I think Stratford has it all throughout their town now. I know since we've started this committee, we've had several ISPs come, and it's so much easier for them to deal with the committee than it is for them to come to council. They speak and they let us know that they're interested in going into a certain area, and that's where I think Execulink now is looking to move towards Port Dover with the fiber run, and they're interested in owning it because they want those customers. And from there, I think that's going to branch off as well. So I think really in the next few years, you're going to see a big growth as far as internet availability in Norfolk County because of the initiative we started, and we still continue to support, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Well said, thank you. Anything else on the motion to receive as information?